when I was taking addictions counseling courses back when I was in college, our professor, she talked about kind of trying to tell the difference between schizophrenia and demonic possession, but even she acknowledged that demonic possession was a thing in some cases. And exorcists do the same thing. They have a psychologist around to try to make sure that it's not a mental illness. But I got to be honest, the more I've looked into it personally, I think most of it is demonic possession. I think there are very few cases of actual schizophrenia out there.
No, I agree.
You know,
I mean, what is mental illness? They say it's a chemical imbalance, but there's no chemicals to measure.
Right. Well, that whole
like
thing
you're talking
was
about with the brain, it's all crap.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They know that thoughts don't come from the brain.
Right.
So we have no idea where they come from. So presumably they've got to be coming from the outside, unless they find some tiny organ or something in your spinal cord at some point in the future. But
No.
as far as we know at present, I mean, that stuff's coming from the outside. Your brain's just picking it up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it makes sense. It's like, how in the world do random chemicals in the brain form coherent codes like a thought?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Like the whole process, the more you think about it, it's like that doesn't add up. Like, your brain can scramble information, sure, but there's no way that dopamine is going to tell you to, the CIA's after you or something, or make you see tree people.
Sure.
Yeah. That kind of self-organization doesn't really add up. So something else has to be playing with the chemicals to form those images.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to say otherwise would be to imply that chemicals and neurons have a mind unto themselves that's apart from you.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty silly.
Yeah, well, it's frightening because looking back on it now, it's like, yeah, that's really stupid. But when I was in those addictions counseling courses, when I was taking psychology, I believed it and I didn't think twice about it.
Yeah.
I just accepted it, and it wasn't until really Jerry Marzinski's book and, just hints like that I started to go, you're right, that's incredibly stupid. Yeah, so it's kind of wild. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. It was before that. It was a different book, but it was right before I started working at the Discovery Institute. It's interesting. It was right before they concluded officially that the chemical imbalance theories about the brain were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But it was some pharmacist, I think. I have it on Audible. I'd have to look it up. But some pharmacist was basically talking about how there's no evidence for the chemical imbalance theory, and it was just a big pharma thing to push medication. And that's what got me started thinking about all that. I think that probably led me to Jerry Marzinski at some point.
I can't remember the guy's name that came up with that, the chemical imbalance thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was just a pharmaceutical. It was like, why are you giving us pharmaceuticals? And he was like, chemicals.
Yeah.
So,
well, we've learned
just like his excuse off the cuff.
Well, if we've learned anything since 2020 is that the pharmaceutical companies are so reliable.
Indeed. Reliable enough to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
They're reliable until you die.
Yeah. Pretty much. It's just sick. I mean, those people are just sick. I can't remember if I got the idea from Alex Jones or not, but when I was remodeling my house back in 2020, when they first started announcing these vaccines, or the big Vs, I think we have to call it something else to stay on YouTube. So I think, Trevor, did we decide on the jibby jab or the jab heard around the world or the shot heard around the world? What did we agree on?
The jab heard around the world.
Jab heard around the world.
Yeah.
So when they first announced the jab heard around the world, they I think it was Jones that said they were gonna basically inject you with one that was gonna be mostly okay, and then as it went on, those shots were going to destroy your immune system.
Yeah.
And make it to where you have to. They're basically giving you AIDS.
Yeah.
And they're just
Weakens
Yeah, it's a slow. What he called it? He called it a soft kill weapon,
Yeah.
and I think that's true. Brett Weinstein was on Joe Rogan, and he came up with he had talked about a study that indicated that very thing not too long ago. You know, if you take 2 shots, think somewhere north of 50% of your immune system gets destroyed if you had the vaccine and 2 of the boosters.
Yep.
So,
which actually links back to this whole thing we're talking about. So the shots are full of metal, right? I mean,
yeah,
not literally metal, but metal particulates. Like they've been putting mercury in them for years. You can read the ingredient packet. It is what it is. But the new ones, I think they were just loaded full of probably a lot of aluminum. I mean, I'm literally guessing, but so when heavy metals get in your body, so we use the stomach as an example. The bottom of your stomach is your appendix.
right.
And so when your appendix bursts, do you know why you die?
I was told a bunch of toxins leak into your bloodstream all at once. Kill you.
Oh, it's not toxins. It's pinworms.
Pinworms?
Pinworms. So
Oh.
whenever your stomach's full of heavy metals, it basically creates an environment in the bottom of your stomach where all those metals sink to. It creates an environment that's hospitable for parasites. Which is, I think, is how demons, get into you. Like once your body's weakened, it lowers your vibratory state or your magnetic state or whatever. And so then you're able to be manipulated through the demons.
Okay, explain. Stop. I'm confused now. So the pinworms or the parasites allow you to be manipulated by demons. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, yeah. I mean, between all the metal, you're definitely changing your magnetic frequency, right?
Okay.
Because you have more metal in your body.
Okay, you're getting into realms I'm completely ignorant about, so you got to talk to me like I'm 4 now.
Okay.
So
if your head's an antenna.
Right. So we've established the brain's a sensory organ, and it's kind of like an antenna. Okay. So
you're picking up signals, right?
Right.
From everywhere.
Okay. Yes.
They can be good or bad. But depending on your magnetic or vibrational signature, it depends on what you're going to pick up. And
what is a magnetic or vibrational signature?
I mean, it's arbitrary at this point, but I mean, it's like you vibrate at a certain rate. Everything vibrates, right?
Okay.
The sound wave.
So
everything is sound and frequency.
Okay. So you have a particular specific frequency. Now, is this frequency unique to like every individual person has their own unique frequency, like a fingerprint? Or is this like a human frequency?
I mean, like Jesus was probably at the perfect frequency. You know what I'm saying?
I'm stupid. You have to slow down. So
like say our base frequency is 100 hertz.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. But if our base frequency is 100 hertz, like the more metal we put in our body, the more that frequency is going to go down.
Okay.
We're denser. We can't vibrate as fast.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Jesus was probably at like, 333.
Gotcha. All right. I'm tracking. So I'm going to push, not because I'm disagreeing, but because I've never heard this before. So I'm pushing on the idea. So are you saying that there is a correlation between these frequencies and our behavior?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, like if your body's full of parasites, it makes you crave things. Like if you eat Hostess, what do you call them? Twinkies all the time. Like that's going to create a specific environment, and parasites will start breeding because your body is not a hospitable place for good bacteria.
And if you
it's a hospitable place for bad bacteria.
And if you take care of cats, there's a parasite that makes you want to take care of a bunch of cats, and you become a cat lady. I've heard that before, so this is along the same lines.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Now, are we talking about propensities that influence behavior, or are we talking about something that can override the will?
Hunger, masturbation, drinking, all of it. Because it compounds itself. Like it wants, like, the more you drink, the more you drink. You know what I mean?
Right. So it sounds like a propensity. Because arguably, when I'm talking about free will, I'm talking about like your, autonomy, like your ability to go, okay, even though I'm going to sweat and have withdrawals, I'm going to stop drinking. Right. So
Yeah.
you always have that ability, but arguably, the more you do something, the more likely you are to continue doing it.
Yes.
So like that idea of the more
Entropy.
you do something, the more, okay. Yeah, that's a good word, entropy. So yeah, you keep heading, if you keep heading towards disorder, you're more likely to continue heading towards disorder, but
For sure.
you still have autonomy to turn back at any given point. It's just habits get harder and harder to beat over time. So these frequencies establish habits. Are more likely to push you towards certain habits. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand. So
Yeah. But I think God, I mean, on that same line of thinking, God is your base. Like he's your stability. Like
right.
he just is.
Right.
Right. And so the more you disrupt his ability to communicate with you by entertaining bad behavior, the more he can't connect with you because you're stopping him.
Okay. So,
but he just is. So you don't have to do anything. You just have to not be bad.
yeah. Well, this is an interesting point because what you're saying actually defeats dualism conceptually, because if God is the standard bearer, then anything that's evil is by definition a deviation from the standard, not something independently equal. Like Satan would not be equal to God. He is a distortion of the good.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm tracking.
Yeah. Satan's whole thing is inversion, man.
Yeah. So, is it fair to say then that the vibration isn't so much like we are putting out a vibration, rather we are detecting because of our, let's say the way we're naturally born, we are detecting the vibrations from the Almighty at the beginning. But there are certain things that can be added to our body that can shift that vibration to make it harder to hear him or to detect what he wants.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm just trying to understand it. So yeah.
Right.
That's why some people say they go their whole lives without ever hearing him. It's because they're not in line with him.
I always say if you want to see God, quit looking in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people are just so caught up in themselves that they don't look upward, and that's why they never see him.
Oh, yeah,
That's the whole thing.
That's what a lot of people will preach on and talk about is your biggest issue when you're trying to walk with God is self.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's what all the demons try to get you to do in the screw tape letters is try to get you to enjoy. Like, they can't create pleasure, but they want you to overuse it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's like God creates pleasure, but the demons tell you to overuse it.
Right.
Yep.
So circling back to the shots, you said that the shots change your frequency because the heavy metals change your density and they fill you up with parasites. So how does it get from the heavy metal thing to like attracting pinworms? Are like pinworms attracted to metals or contagions?
Well, pinworms is just the example that I was using to get the idea across, because that's what happens to your appendix. I don't know what food pinworms crave or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's sugar. But
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, that's interesting because that explains why I had to take so much black walnut and all this anti-parasite stuff right after my appendicitis burst or almost burst or whatever. So I didn't realize that there were worms in the appendix, but...
Oh, yeah, there's worms all over you, man.
I certainly hope not. I've taken a lot of black walnut to try to get rid of the things. So yeah, so the shots, what would be the government's objective for trying to, I mean, obviously they're trying to kill us by destroying our immune systems, but what would be their objective is it just another step towards pushing people into hedonism? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, it's like, are the parasites? What makes it more likely that if you have parasites, you're gonna automatically crave bad things? Does that make sense? Am I asking that correctly?
What is it that makes? Yeah, I don't understand the question.
Okay, so you said that the metal changes the frequency, makes it harder for you to hear the Almighty, because as that frequency changes, you start to crave bad things. If you do those bad things, you start to go further and further down an evil rabbit hole, let's say.
Okay.
What I'm asking is, what is it about the metal that attracts the parasites, and what is it about the parasites that makes people want to do bad things?
Because it's unfair.
Okay, explain.
Like with me, okay, for example, I have massive food allergies.
Right.
So like that's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
But the vaccines are a secret. So who am I going to blame?
I think I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So
Because-
it's like, oh, all these things get done to me. You know, life is unfair. God doesn't love me. Blah blah. You know, it's all this. They just make life harder. But I mean, you can turn that around and strength through adversity, right?
Right. So rather than, okay, now I think I get what you're saying. So rather than pushing towards hedonism, they make you unhealthy so that you have a whole bunch of chaos in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And because you have all this chaos in your life, you consider it unfair. That makes you eventually more likely to reject the Almighty and start doing bad things to lash out.
Great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that could go in line with all the mental health problems too, like anxiety, depression, and so on and so forth.
Oh, I think the vaccines were doing way more than anybody admitted. And I'm speaking as somebody who thought all that anti-vax stuff was nonsense until Demi was born.
Yeah.
And then once I ran into those charming nurses and had a particularly hostile encounter with them, that kind of changed my perspective. Like, I don't know if I told you guys that story or not, but
I don't think so. What did you do? Ask them a question? They got mad?
No. What happened? All right, I'm going to tell the story then, I suppose, is what happened is, you know, Jess is giving birth, and looking back on it, this is my opinion. I can't prove it. My memory might be a little hazy, but this is what I think happened. I think I'd made it abundantly clear that I did not want her vaccinated as a baby, and I think I had talked to the nurse about it prior, but I don't remember doing it. So when they gave Jess the thing that goes
epidural.
The epidural, they brought a doctor in there to ask her about the vaccines after she'd received the epidural. Now, I don't know if that does anything to your brain or not, but I was rushed out of the room, and I thought that was a little suspect. Well, Jess agrees to the vaccines after she has the epidural. And when she's giving birth, all of a sudden, the nurse just yanks Demi out and tears Jess up.
What?
Yeah. And they rush.
Why was the nurse doing the birth?
There wasn't a doctor. Yeah, it was the nurse. I don't know why.
That sucks.
Yeah. And so they pull her out and tears Jess up. And they say that Demi had swallowed, fluid, the umbilical fluid. Now, I have given or helped give birth to countless calves. I know what that sounds like. There's usually a rattle, And if she still had fluid in her lungs, then when she started crying, there should have been a rattle or something. There was nothing. There was nothing like that. She sounded fine and healthy to me. I think they gave Jess maybe about 10, 15 seconds of skin time with Demi. It was really, really quick. After they spanked her and cleaned her up. And then they immediately rush her out of the room. Like, book it. Now, they said that she'd swallowed the umbilical fluid, but again, I've done that before, like not with humans, obviously, but with cows.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what that sounds like.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was bizarre. And when they rushed Demi out of the room, I kind of raised an eyebrow and I go after him. And they didn't expect me to follow them.
Mm-hmm.
Jess was very unhappy because she was tore up and she wanted me there. But I was thinking they're going to do something to our freaking kid, you know? And so I chase off after him. And when I get into that room, the nurse kind of looks up and gives the oh crap look. And she was in the middle of giving Demi a shot.
Yeah.
When I walked in.
They're all like sneaks, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I think she told me,
No.
if my memory serves me correct, now this was a few years ago, so I might be wrong, but if memory serves me correct, one of them was the Hep B shot, which they don't have any business giving a baby.
Why does a baby need a party drug vaccine?
Yeah. And why were they trying to sneak it 30 seconds after she was born when she supposedly swallowed umbilical fluid? Like, they couldn't even get the dad blame mask to feed her air before they were starting to give her shots, you know?
Yep.
And they were just so eager to get that done. And I told them to stop. They got 2 in her, maybe 3, but I told them to knock it off and they quit giving the shots. They weren't happy about it. But
Because they get paid every time they give one, man.
that would explain it.
Most child's like pediatrician offices, privately owned establishments, they can't run without the kickbacks from the vaccines that they get.
I didn't
They
know
literally can't operate their shops.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Like, dude, you go to a doctor without insurance, and it doesn't really matter what it is. It's like most of our doctor's appointments are like $40 now.
Yeah.
Because they just don't care. Like, it's all, the insurance is the thing that makes the doctor's office expensive.
Right.
It's wild. But yeah, like the vaccines are a huge part of it. Like, the medical system can't even function the way it currently does without the vaccines. Like, it would fall on its face because they have to make customers.
They have to make customers. That's the whole thing. Well, anyway, ever since that encounter with those nurses, I have been very suspicious of vaccines. I really wasn't before, but after that, I've been like, there's something wrong with this.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, man, honestly, I think the vaccine, the main point of it, in my opinion, I can't prove this, but the main point is to get that mercury in you. And so you pick up different radio waves or whatever, like we were talking about earlier. You pick up a different frequency. Because, I mean, like, autistic kids they're like cyborgish, right? They'd make great soldiers if they could hyperfixate on that one thing. And that's what the government, that's what they want. They want people who will do what they say.
that could
Not
be
weak people, strong people, which could explain the culling of the herd, in 2020.
Yeah.
But they want obedient, strong people, which is hard to get.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly true about the RNA stuff. I don't know so much about the heavy metals part of it. I do think that they do they do something to the vaccines. The theory I heard was that they basically link a spiked protein to the dead virus. It's just a general methodology. And they do that so that the body learns to attack the protein, because the protein's usually similar to like your ovaries or your testicles or some organ. And so your antibodies start fighting the organs alongside with the virus. And that's how they kind of sneak it in to give people problems. And that manifests, depending on which protein they use or whatever, that manifests in a variety of different ways. So the food allergies, for example, are probably a result of some sort of protein that's similar to something in the colon. And now every time you eat and this protein gets activated or whatever, it causes inflammation.
Sort of. What I've figured out is in the 90s when my shots were made, they were using peanut husks, shellfish husks, legume husks, things like that as a substrate to grow the vaccines, because vaccines grow just like a mushroom does.
Okay.
So they have to grow that material. So whatever was in that dirt that they grew the vaccines out of, I'm allergic to.
That makes sense.
So does that make everything worse for you?
What do you mean?
Like after they give you the shots?
I don't know. As a baby.
Oh. Gotcha.
I'd heard something about that. I heard that's why they were wanting to use cow parts and beef to grow that stuff in, so people would be allergic to cows.
Oh man, yeah.
I'd heard
Make everybody vegan.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. I've heard that.
So that's actually where the first vaccine came from. Was I think it was I think it ended up being a what was the word? I lost it.
That's all right. That's all right.
What's amoxicillin?
Amoxicillin. You got me.
Penicillin. I think it was close to penicillin. Antibiotic. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So the first vaccine was actually they pulled pus out of a lesion on a cow.
Mm-hmm.
Because like when your body creates a lesion, it's expressing a toxin, right?
Right.
Like here's this, it needs to not be in your body. And so they pulled the white blood cells out of that. And that was the first vaccine. This was like 1888, I believe.
Huh. Well. No, I believe it. But I imagine I read part of RFK's The Real Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
He goes into that a little bit. Now, he maintains that the vaccines were mostly fine until about 1984. And then they passed some law, and then there was a gold rush, basically, where they required more and more and more vaccines.
Yeah.
And I think
84
that's
was
really
probably when the pharmaceutical companies got protection against vaccine damage, being sued for vaccine damage.
Yeah.
No, maybe that was Reagan.
I don't know. I think it was 84 would have been the Reagan administration. I don't know if Reagan.
Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe it was.
It might have been something Congress passed and it got paper clipped in, and then Reagan was like, yeah, whatever. I need to lower taxes. Because you know how they do. They like to, we're going to pass this bill to lower taxes. And then they, paperclip something about buying a new airplane for somebody, and they don't read the whole thing. The president's just like, all right, I guess I'll sign that or whatever.
I get my airplane.
Yeah. And then he later learns that he's signed, I don't know, some bill to paint the trees purple or something. I don't know.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, I think that was probably what happened there. Is like the pharmaceutical companies got their protection, so they were like, oh, let's bum rush them.
I'd have to reread the book. It's been a little bit, but I
think RFK is mostly full of shit. So
what?
I think RFK is mostly full of shit. So
I don't know. I mean, on some stuff, yeah. I think he's a Democrat. He's gonna be wrong about some things, but no, I think he's probably right about a lot of the stuff that's put in food, and a lot of he's definitely right about the vaccine stuff.
Yeah,
and I think Trump has put him exactly where he needs to be, and I think he's going to be effective where he's been placed.
Where's that? I don't keep up.
They're gonna go. Gosh, dang it! He said it in the speech, and I can't remember off the top of my head. They're gonna look into the assassinations that have happened over the last 50 years. They're gonna release all the documents, right? And then he's also gonna be put in charge of like some sort of health department, and they're gonna look into the vaccines. I heard...
They're making him a literal gatekeeper?
I don't know if it's a gatekeeper. It's an investigative committee, which those things usually have all the power of a fart. But, but he's going to be a part of a committee and to kind of look into this stuff in detail. And I've heard in the wonderful and reliable source known as Twitter that, or X, that he wants to ban all processed food. I wouldn't be for that. I'm sorry?
RFK does?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly think processed food is harmful.
Yeah.
I don't think bans ever work. So I don't want
No,
to see stuff
I don't.
banned, but I would be in favor of just stop using science language and, pseudo Latin to hide what you're putting in the food. I mean, if
Oh,
you're
you
putting
can
in
eat it.
like,
I mean,
petroleum waste, say you're putting in
Yeah.
petroleum waste, I ain't a picky eater. I'm probably likely to not care in any case, but I would like to know if I'm eating, a cancer cell or something.
yeah. You got to learn big words, man.
I know. Yeah.
Sodium bicarbonate,
Right.
whatever.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.